Have you ever found yourself doing everything she wanted, trying not to make mistakes, trying to be perfect, trying to show that you're different from the others? Have you ever noticed yourself giving away every piece of you without resistance, hoping to finally be valued? At first it feels right, it feels fair, it feels like love, but over time it starts to hurt. It starts to bother you. It starts to break you inside, because even after giving everything, you feel no return. You feel no reciprocity. You feel like you're becoming small, predictable, disposable. Seneca warned us, uncontrolled desire is the root of our weakness. And when you crave acceptance at any cost, when you live to please a woman, you enter a state of emotional servitude that destroys your presence. She asks for something, and you give. She changes, and you adapt. She pulls away, and you get closer. You become an extension of her desire, and slowly, you disappear in your attempt to be seen. What many men still don't understand is that a woman's desire is not driven by what is easily given. What attracts is not immediate obedience. It's the silent strength of a man who doesn't bow. What intrigues is not the constant act of pleasing, but the firmness of someone who says no with presence, because what she wants is not always what she respects. And this is where the danger lies. You believe giving everything is the right thing to do, but excess kills the tension. And when the tension dies, desire dissolves. You become an open book, and no one falls in love with a book without mystery. The problem isn't being good, it's being good and fragile, being good and forgettable, being good and predictable. This video is an invitation for you to return to your center, to remember that pleasing, when it comes from fear, isn't kindness, it's escape. This isn't about manipulation, it's about preserving your integrity. Because a man who gives too much too soon loses his shape, and a man without shape doesn't make an impact, doesn't provoke respect, doesn't sustain desire. Never giving a woman exactly what she wants isn't coldness, it's maturity. It's knowing that love without limits becomes addiction, and desire without tension becomes boredom. You're not here to please, you're here to remain whole, firm, present, steering your own ship, even when the sea gets rough. There is a silent anguish that follows the man who tries to do everything right. He believes the key to being loved lies in pleasing, in being the most available, the kindest, the most present. He replies quickly, anticipates her needs, avoids conflict, does everything for her. And even so, she leaves, not slowly, but coldly, indifferently. And he, confused, tries to understand where he went wrong, what was missing, what more he could have done. But the truth no one had the courage to tell him is this: the more you give, the less she feels she has to earn. The more you mold yourself, the less presence you command. And a woman doesn't want a mirror reflecting her desires. She wants a man who stands firm in his own. She doesn't want to be your destination. She wants to admire your path. The nice guy suffers not because he's good, but because he's empty of himself, because he believes that yielding is the purest form of love. But in yielding too much, he disconnects from what makes him admirable, his conviction, his mission, his center. And without that, he becomes an emotional accessory, temporary support, a tolerable presence, but never a priority. The deepest pain is not being rejected, it's being forgotten while trying to be needed. And that forgetfulness is born from excess, because excess breaks the tension, kills the mystery, erases the man, and what's left is a familiar face no longer seen. Validating a woman isn't about folding, it's about keeping your pace. Even when she tries to change the rhythm, even when she tests you, even when she threatens to pull away, a man is not chosen for what he gives, he is chosen for what he represents. And if you dim yourself to be loved, you're teaching that your value depends on someone else's acceptance, and that will never be admired. Saying yes too often weakens you, and saying no at the right time builds respect. You were taught to please, to say yes so you wouldn't lose. to yield in order to keep someone close, to accept everything to avoid rejection. But what no one taught you is that no is one of the deepest languages of masculinity. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't wound, it sets a boundary, it informs, it shows you're there, but you won't be moved by neediness. In psychology, they call this tension, the subtle friction that sustains desire, because anything given without resistance loses its flavor. What is earned without effort is quickly discarded. And when you say no calmly, firmly, with presence, you become interesting because you show that you don't need to please in order to stay. Women test, and it's not out of malice, it's instinct. They push your limits to see if there's structure there, to see if you hold your space or crumble at the first sign of disapproval. And the man who folds at the first request, who adjusts without question, who says yes to everything, loses his glow, because the glow comes from resistance, from the light friction between what she wants and what you allow. No creates respect because it demands presence, because it's not automatic, because it shows there's a man there, not just an emotional servant, a man who thinks, who feels, who chooses, and most of all, who prioritizes himself. When you say no with your whole body, with a steady gaze, with a silence filled with purpose, she understands. She doesn't need to agree, but she respects it, because respect is born from boundaries, and a boundary, when delivered with elegance, is irresistible. She says she wants a sensitive man, one who talks about his feelings, who shows vulnerability, who opens his heart. But when she finds a man like that, something cools, something goes quiet, something in her loses interest. And you, who were exactly what she asked for, don't understand why she pulls away, why she starts treating you like a friend, why the desire fades while you try harder to be emotionally transparent. This is the paradox. Because what she says isn't always what moves her. What she verbalizes isn't necessarily what fuels desire. She may admire your sweetness, but what really makes her feel, what truly attracts her, is something else. It's the security you convey. It's the emotional control you exercise. It's the space you occupy without asking for permission. A woman doesn't surrender to the fragile. She watches the fragile. She takes care of the fragile, but she desires the firm, the grounded, the one who knows how to feel without falling apart, the one who knows how to listen without bowing, the one who feels deeply but stays intact. Imagine a wall. She doesn't want to tear it down, but she wants to know it's there. Because if there's no wall, there's no respect, no boundaries, no containment, and the absence of containment becomes chaos. That's why she tests, she pokes, she provokes, not because she wants to see you fall, but because she wants to know where the edge is. And if there is no edge, she leaves. Knowing how to frustrate with elegance is one of the highest forms of masculine presence. Knowing how to say "not now" with calm firmness is an art. Because it shows that you're here, but you won't be guided by someone else's desire, that you feel, but you're not for sale, that you care, but you don't give yourself away at the first touch. The man she desires is not the one who obeys, it's the one who leads, who knows that desire feeds on tension, and that love, when it finds no structure, turns into pity, never passion. There's an invisible line between loving with presence and losing your own direction. When you hand over the emotional steering wheel of the relationship, even if it feels like affection, you stop being a reference and become a reflection. And the reflection, no matter how beautiful, never leads. It only echoes. At first, it may seem like care, yielding, adjusting, pleasing, but little by little, your inner compass weakens. You start to follow her rhythm, her mood, her emotional schedule, and before you know it, you're dancing around someone else's desire while yours fades. What you don't see is that by doing this, you're killing her desire for you, because no matter how much she asks for connection, no matter how much she says she wants closeness, what keeps her engaged is the feeling that she's in front of a solid man, a man who listens, yes, who considers, yes, but who decides the course, who holds the helm even when the sea is rough. When you give too much, always yield, explain everything, adapt to every shift she makes, you lose symbolic value. Because value lies in mystery, in silent leadership, in the gesture that says, I hear you, but I do not sway. A woman admires the one who walks without losing pace, the one who stays centered even when the environment screams for attention. Men with firm presence don't need to control. They simply hold their axis, and the axis alone commands. She may disagree, she may test, she may doubt, but in the end, if she respects you, she follows, even without realizing it. Never give her what must remain yours, the direction, the structure, the emotional guidance, because desire dies where there is no reference, and a man who fades to please stops being desired, not from lack of love, but from absence of leadership. Before a single word is spoken, the body has already spoken. It has already revealed or concealed, already attracted or repelled. A woman perceives this. She feels it. She reads what you don't even see, the way you walk, the rhythm of your breathing, the silence between one phrase and the next, the way you look, and most of all, the way you contain yourself. A man with presence doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to rush to be noticed. He moves slowly. He speaks with pauses. He listens with his whole body. He carries a dense calm, almost tangible. His body language doesn't say, choose me. It says, I've already chosen myself, and that changes everything. Because the mystery doesn't lie in what you hide, but in what you hold. True magnetism doesn't come from what is promised, but from what is contained, from what is felt, but not fully given. Because anything too easy is forgotten too fast. The mind of a centered man is like steel, flexible but unbreakable. He doesn't react out of neediness, doesn't talk too much to fill silence, doesn't promise what he doesn't feel. He observes, he reflects, and only then decides. Because he doesn't live in a rush. He lives in presence. Men who rush, who try to justify themselves, who talk too much to convince, are not seen as strong. They are seen as anxious, as fragile, as insecure men trying to cover their fear with excess. But a woman senses it. She always senses it. What attracts the most is not the man who offers himself. It's the man who stays, who sustains his value in silence, who doesn't need to explain himself because his presence is already the answer. And that silence full of axis, purpose, firmness, is worth more than 1,000 whispered promises. You're not here to please. You weren't born to be an emotional satellite orbiting someone else's desire, and yet, that's exactly what you were taught to be. They told you love was about giving everything, about always yielding, about becoming exactly what she wants. But what no one told you is that in doing so, you fall apart, you dissolve, you lose yourself. Never giving a woman exactly what she wants isn't rebellion, it's respect. Respect for yourself, for what you've built, for what you feel, for what keeps you standing. When you live to please, you become something shapeless, molded by others' expectations. And a man without shape has no presence, and without presence there is no respect. Without respect, there is no desire. Real value lies in scarcity, in well-placed silence, in the gaze that doesn't beg, in the speech that doesn't try to convince. It lies in the firmness of someone who knows where he stands, and because of that, won't move for just any promise. It lies in the clarity of someone who understands that being good doesn't mean being weak. Return to your center. Return to your axis, not to pull away from women, but to return to being a man before them. A man who loves with direction, who feels with structure, who desires without submitting. The right woman won't respect you because you gave her everything she asked for. She'll respect you because even while loving, you remained. Because even while feeling, you didn't bow. Because even while present, you stayed whole. The man who masters himself doesn't beg for anything. He attracts, not out of game, but out of wholeness. Because he doesn't need, because he doesn't empty himself trying to fill anyone. Step out of the role of emotional servant. Step into the role of silent leader. Breathe, notice, stand firm. You're not here to please, you're here to be. And a man who is never needs to explain himself.